Dear audience, welcome to another show, NT Podcast, Science and Theology. I'm Nemanja Jurišić, and today we have the incredible honor of hosting a distinguished scientist and author, Professor Gerald Schroeder. Dr. Schroeder, how are you?
As I usually say, on which level? On the superficial level, fine. On the deeper level, also, thank God, fine. So I would say fine on both levels.
Oh, okay, you're 86, so how is your health?
How was my health? I'm just closing some of the doors so there's less noise. How's my health? Thank God at the moment. Well, about a year ago, I fell and broke my pelvis. But
Oh, I'm sorry.
it was just horrible, painful. But the bones didn't move. It was like from head. I mean, if I had to break it some way, and it broke in two places like this. I don't know how much. I don't see where I am, so I don't have a picture of me. But it broke in two places, and the bones didn't move. And so, by several months later, they had actually grown back together. But I don't recommend people breaking their pelvis. It is considered to be the most painful break in the body, and it was painful. But thank God it grew back with no surgery, nothing, just growth. Nature
Yes,
has.
I'm terribly sorry. Yeah.
So aside from that, everything is good.
All right. I will just read for those who maybe don't know you. Gerald Schroeder is an Orthodox Jewish physicist, author, lecturer, and teacher at College of Jewish Studies Aish HaTorah's Discovery Seminar, Essentials and Fellowships Programs and Executive Learning Center, who focuses on what he perceives to be an inherent relationship between science and spirituality. Schroeder received his BS in 1959. That's
There's a
long
bit
ago.
before you were
So,
born.
yes, his MS in 1961 and his PhD in nuclear physics and Earth and planetary sciences in 1965 from MIT. So, it is interesting that Antony Flew, an academic philosopher who promoted atheism for most of his adult life, indicated that the arguments of Gerald Schroeder has influenced his decision to become a deist. So, Dr. Gerald, could you share your life story and explain how you came to believe in the existence of God?
Yeah, it would be very similar to Antony Flews, actually. You have to realize the position you just mentioned. Professor Flew changing his understanding. He's in English from England. God, Antony Flew was the most widely published atheist in the world. He published a paper in. Are we still on? Because yeah, he published a paper. He published a paper many decades ago, but it was the most widely quoted paper in any field of philosophy for 50 years, for 50 years, on the proof that there couldn't be a God. So he had thousands. You have to understand his position. He had thousands of persons, and then he via my work and other work, including a wonderful person named Roy Varghese, presented him some of the scientific arguments of which he was unaware. And when he saw not just the science that I believe is correct, but the deep science that's published and known in journals that are accepted around the world, but Flew wasn't aware of this information. He said something quite interesting. He quoted Socrates, who said, "I must go where the truth leads me." And he with the presentation of totally unbiased science, just facts from science, he says he realizes now there's no question there must be some guiding hand active in the world to make the world behave the way it does. So I guess what got me into this, I guess, would be I'm not really sure why. why what led me to believe that there is a hand. I mean, I see it in the workings of nature. So and in fact, one of the major philosophers of Hebrew philosophers on the Hebrew Bible, a man by the name of Maimonides. He's about the year about 1150. So it's about almost 1,000 years ago, 900, 800, 900 years ago. Wrote that the quickest way to understand that there's a divine force in the world, in fact, he said it's probably the only way to be certain, is to study nature. He said, if you want to understand how if you want to understand how the world works, study science, the science of nature. He called it in Madat Teva, the science of nature. So I would say the same would be with me, that that the more I studied the sciences of the world, the more deeply I realized that there must be some kind of a guiding hand. And then that makes you suddenly have the leap of faith that there is, and then it's not just science, but you just feel it also. But I would guess the feeling of a hand in nature, making it run, and then beyond that, you make a step beyond it. You just end up with faith as it is. So, but I made that study many decades and decades ago, and long before I had the privilege of meeting with Antony Flew. I wasn't aware of Flew's understanding of the world until I met him at a meeting that was set up by a magnificent human being named Roy Borghese, who lives in Dallas, Texas. He spent his earliest years of his life in India. Then he moved to the state, U.S., Texas, high tech. And it is he who got Flew. And I mean, there's thousands of other people who can say the same story, because I have literally many hundreds of letters saying the same thing that Flew said. Okay, so one thing leads to another. The more you study in the sciences, the more clear it becomes that there is something guiding the sciences. The person who coined the term the Big Bang, just his name, everyone knows who his name is. I mean, I can see it in my anyway. He coined it in derision as a skeptic altogether. But then, when the more science that he did, he realized that the numbers are fixed. The numbers in science are juggled. Oh, it's so silly. I mean, everyone knows the man's name.
Is it George Lamarck?
No. There's is so it's boy, it's just well, as you mentioned, 86 years, so I'm allowed to forget things.
Maybe Fred Hoyle?
Fred Hoyle, yeah, of course, it's Fred. Yeah, Fred
Yeah.
Hoyle. Fred Hoyle coined the term in derision when he still believed that the universe was eternal back in the 1950s. So that's like 70 years ago. And he was on being interviewed on the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. And the topic came up, and he said, some people think there's a beginning to the world. They can call it the Big Bang. So it's like a joke, but the press picked it up. The public, the news media picked up the term the Big Bang. And then eventually Hoyle became one of the persons who actually brought some of the key data that prove that you can't prove it because you can't go back that far, but let's say makes it 99.99% certain that there was a Big Bang, a creation. The term the Big Bang is just another word for creation. It's just which is interesting, because if you go back about 70 years ago, which seems like a long time ago, but in the 1950s, in other words, Scientific American, the American Journal of Scientific American, surveyed hundreds of scientists that were involved in studying the cosmos. The overwhelming opinion of the 1950s was the universe is eternal. It was forget it. And the telescope in California, forget it. I can't. somehow I didn't have enough coffee this morning to wake up my brain. So, Hubble, and Hummus and Henry. The person that doesn't get the credit, we always say Henry Hubble, but there's another person. All of his work is based on the work of Henrietta Leavitt. No one hears that. He nominated her for a Nobel Prize. He realized how important she was, and unfortunately, she died of cancer before she could get the Nobel Prize. Henrietta Leavitt determined that the way of measuring how far a galaxy is from the Earth. Once it's far enough away, just looking at it doesn't tell you how far away it is. You need some kind of a measure. She discovered the measure in Cepheid stars, and after that, all of his work is based on that. That's why he put her up for a Nobel Prize, which she certainly deserved, because her studies gave the ability to change the understanding of the universe. And all of his work is based on her studies. He did the interpretation, but she gave the measure. Henrietta Leavitt, worth looking up, 2 T's on the Leavitt. So I know we got there, and it was Fred Hoyle that coined the term the Big Bang, but later when he discovered the way that carbon. So when the Big Bang didn't produce the elements, the Big Bang produced energy. I don't know if people are aware about the creation of the universe. Didn't bring chopped liver and whatever, ham and eggs or whatever you happen to eat into being. A Big Bang brought only high energy. Einstein, in his famous equation equals mc squared, showed the world the mathematical relationship of how energy and matter are related, and that energy can change form and become solid matter, just like water. At one level is steam. At another level of energy, it's liquid. At another level of energy, it's solid ice. And matter is the same way, it turns out. Matter at very high energy just becomes radiation energy. But then energy, in accord with the famous equation, E equals mc squared, the amount of energy equals the amount of matter times c squared, is a gigantic number, c squared. So there's huge amounts of energy in every piece of matter. But energy changes form, becomes matter. The Big Bang produces energy, can turn into matter, and that matter, called nucleosynthesis, builds up the elements. And Hoyle, when you look at the distribution of elements in the world, it's like in English, you call it a put-up job. Carbon, the atom carbon, which is the jack of all trades. No carbon, no complex life, no life, period. No carbon is the building blocks of complexity, of complex molecules. Because it's right in what's called the periodic table, it falls exactly where you were. Well, carbon turns out to be the most abundant element in the universe that is solid in the temperature range that water is liquid. Or carbon is not the most abundant element, hydrogen, helium, but it's the most abundant element that's solid in the temperature range that water is liquid, which is exactly what you need to make life, the molecules of life. Hoyle discovered the root, and then discovered the way that carbon became so relatively abundant in the universe. And at that point, he said, forget it. There's nothing by chance in this world. You read his papers that he published from Caltech on saying all the numbers have been juggled. I mean, there was a person who changed his view from coining the term the Big Bang as a joke to saying that the whole system's a put-up job, that there's nothing, there are no things by chance. So, and the more you study the sciences, Erwin Schrödinger, again, my name is Schroeder, but there's a scientist named Schrödinger. Frankly, I look so much like him that one of our daughters-in-law, some of our kids and I were studying some work by Schrödinger, and his picture was on the screen. And one of our daughters-in-law walks into the room and says, why is, my Hebrew name is Yaakov, why is Yaakov on television? Well, it wasn't Yaakov. It was Aaron Schrödinger. But it's interesting because the name is almost, and the face is almost, I don't recognize it. Like you usually don't recognize someone who's similar, but she said, why is Yaakov's picture? And it was Aish. So maybe I have a relationship to him. In any event, Schroeder and Schrodinger. So the whole nature of the universe seems to be like a put-up job, that everything is juggled to make it. But the most basic thing is that we all take for granted, I would say, in the design of the universe, is that the design of an atom, atom, allows complexity to occur. Complexity is formed by atoms joining together to form molecules. I don't know how much you can see my hand here. If atoms joining together to form molecules. Well, atoms can only join together to form molecules by sharing what's called electrons. The center of the atom is very heavy, has protons and neutrons. Around it are electrons. Electrons have an electron has the identical charge of a proton, minus and plus, but is almost 2,000 times lighter, which is very interesting. Same charge, but 1,800. I'll just say 2,000. 2,000 times lighter, and that's very strange. Why does it have the same charge, electrical, if it's 2,000 times lighter? You'd think it have 2,000 times as, but it has the identical charge. And what's crucial here now is it's so light that it can jump from one atom to another. And when it does that, it joins the two atoms together, and you get a molecule, and eventually you get stuff like this, some people, and that design is so fundamental to the universe. It's the other things of design are you can argue yes or no, but this is so clear, the structure of an atom. So the universe looks like it's been put together with the design that there be complexity, and with that complexity conforms eventually consciousness. You can see the development over time, the origin of life. No one has a clue of the origin of life. The DNA we all know is so complex, etc. All of these things point to a hand active in the universe. I got into this studies with our kids because thank God we have 5 kids. Barbara, my real name is Barbara Sofer Schroeder. My wife's name is Sofer, means writer. She has a great blog. People want to have a really interesting blog. Every Friday she publishes it on Facebook, and it's under the name Barbara Sofer because that's her profession. Sofer means writer. She's a writer before we ever met. And anyway, so our actual name is Barbara. Yeah, Gerald and Barbara Sofer Schroeder, but we just Sofer. And anyway, what am I getting at? So we used to years ago, decades ago, we lived very close in Israel, but very close to some of the more famous caves of what we call the transition of humans from Africa into Europe. They came through Israel as a land bridge. And there's a cave that you read in the journals, it always pops up. The name always pops up. And we lived only about a mile or so. We could walk there, climb up the mountain, go into now it's a big site. It's decades later. But that got our kids asking questions, dinosaur, the cave is not about dinosaurs. It's about the humans that made the mind out. But then, age of the universe, were there ever dinosaurs? In fact, I have an ebook called, Well, What About Dinosaurs? You can give a whole lecture on everything. And always the last question is if some reason, all that's true, but what about the dinosaurs? Why are the dinosaurs in the Bible? Anyway, actually, they are actually hinted at in the Bible, but leave that alone for the moment. Anyway, so that's what. So the kids would ask questions. Our kids would ask questions. They come home with answers from the teachers, which didn't seem too impressive. And that's what got me into writing these books. So.
All right, fascinating informations. And can I ask you about Antony Flew? Let's get back to that topic because some people say that when he converted to deism, he was mentally ill and maybe people say things. So what is your opinion? Can you say something because you know him personally?
I had never met him before. Then Roy Varghese out of his own pocket, got Flew and me and two other people together. One Haldane, three of us, two from England, one me from Israel. We all came to New York City, and because it was a good place to do filming, we made a film called "Has Science Discovered God?" I urge people to look at that. It's me. It's a blabbing, but it's the whole discussion with Antony Flew. I think it's called "Has Science Discovered God?" And if you did that and you put Roy Varghese, Gerald Schroeder, Antony Flew on Google, it'll come up. I spent those 3 or 4 days with him, and also before and after that. He was sharp. He was not senile. I think he was. I mean, pardon me for saying, I don't think he was much older than I am right now. And so far, thank God, I should bring my wife. I don't think I'm yet senile, although I do forget things. Thank God. No, he was not mentally impaired. That's the hope that atheists have, because Flew was the hook. How do I show this on it? That more than thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of atheists hung their atheism on this hook named Antony Flew. And suddenly Flew says, I'm trapped. I have always in my life followed the school of Socrates. I must go where the truth leads me. Those are his words. I guess Socrates said it. And in any event, he said, it is clear to me now that there is a force in the world guiding the world. And suddenly this hook collapses. These atheists fall to the ground, and now the most important thing in their life is gone. You know, their major Hebrews in a smarta, the thing on which they can rest their atheism, and it's gone. Maybe there are other arguments. Most of them are usually pretty bad. But and I'm going to get to one in a moment to just show an example. And so the only argument that they could have against Flew, he was spot on mentally. There was no problem with Antony Flew at that age. We had discussions, but it was a big emotional thing for him, to suddenly realize that he had never been exposed to the science. He didn't realize that the proof was overwhelming, that our universe had a beginning. He was unaware of that because he was a philosopher, and not every philosopher studies the sciences, which is unfortunate. And so he was suddenly exposed. Thank God I have a strong, my background, thank God, in the sciences is a blessing. I can't say listen, it's a blessing. All those years at MIT, 14 years, undergraduate, graduate, on the staff. I mean, that stuff sinks in after a while. And he had never had that. So his exposure to the scientific nature of the universe, as opposed to the philosophical nature of the universe, changed his opinion. He wasn't senile. That argument came up. There was a very long article in the New York Times on the magazine section, in fact, which is one of the major publications in the United States, about his conversion. And they mentioned my name 9 times, blaming me. There's like a 4-page article in the New York Times weekend edition. And I counted the 9 times they blamed this guy Schroeder, not for duping him, but for presenting the information. There's a book that's very popular, published a few years ago, maybe 10 years, but it's still called A Universe from Nothing. A man by the name of Cousins, or a very famous scientist. The science is superb. The book is excellent to the last chapter, where the most stupid statements are made. They say, now we see that you can make a universe without God. All you need are the laws of nature. It's true. And Ed Tryon in 1970 published in the journal Nature, but this is a book that was just published maybe 5 years ago, called A Universe from Nothing. And the conclusion is, well, we don't need God anymore. All we need is the laws of nature. Now you understand the stupidity, the myopic, it's called myopic, the stupidity of the author, who's a bright man, a great physicist. every time he's confronted with, well, where do the laws of nature come from? Because if you have, as Ed Tryon, who went to his grave without getting the praise he should have, he published in the journal Nature in 1970, that if you have the laws of nature, namely quantum physics and relativity, you can make a universe from a potential nothing physical. You can make it physical. You can. Quantum physics or quantum mechanics allows what's called yesh ma'ayin, something from nothing, provided you have the laws of nature. Well, where do you get the laws of nature? So this man writes a whole book about showing how the laws of nature, and it's spot on the physics. And then the final chapter says, see, you don't need God. Without ever asking what's the origin of the laws of nature. The tunnel visual of I mean, it's mind-boggling. The stupidity the stupid statements that brilliant people can come up with. The author, who Cousins is a brilliant scientist. The science is superb in the book. And then the final chapter is totally in fact, once he said, there's always the nitpickers. I read an indirect quote. Like someone said, I asked him, so it wasn't a direct quote of him saying, there's always these nitpickers that want to know things like the origin of the laws of nature. Why don't they just leave it alone? Well, that's the whole answer. The laws of nature predate nature in fact, there's a video I urge persons, if they can see. It's a video we made it with zero text, no script. It has I haven't seen it. Someone pointed it has 3.7 million views, called Proof of God in 5 Minutes. Proof of God in 5 minutes. It's been hijacked, called Belief in God. It's me talking. Magnificent graphics, of which I have nothing to do. I have no idea to make graphics. But there's no script. Actually, it's 5 minutes and 28 seconds. Proof of God in 5 minutes. Over almost 4 million views. I think 3.7 million views. And it just shows you that science has essentially shown the hand of God in the universe. You don't get 3.7 million views if it's foolishness. So that's the proof of God in 5 minutes. Anyway, so that's how I came to my understanding of there being a force, by seeing nature and feeling it also. I have to say I feel it well. I grew up in a very rural area. And my parents had always this feeling of a stronger force in the world. So I grew up with that. I mean, it was so rural that you could walk out of our house and not see any other houses, from trees and orchards and woods and fields. And so I was very much into nature. And that I would say is the origin of my, the feeling of this closeness to the world. So.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So why Antony Flew didn't become Jewish or Christian or something, but he stayed as a deist? What is your response? What do you think?
It was semi-deist. See, that's the thing, semi-deist. If you see that video of scientists go by this thing that he set up, and we did a film, he accepts the fact that there's God active in it. See, the difficulty with the deist is you press the creation button and then you go out for lunch. That's the deist God. That's not his deism. And that's what people fail to realize. He pressed the button, you have creation. I wanted to see, in fact, in the video, I wanted to see how much I could draw Flew into the universe. And he's into God in the universe through the making of DNA. Well, that's, how many billion years into the universe you are already till you get DNA and life. That's the majority of the time of the universe. So Flew is not a true deist. he sees the hand of God active in the origin of life. Now, the fact that he sees it doesn't mean he's correct. He's no biologist. Right along, he's a philosopher. But when he looks as a philosopher at the data that are related to the origins of life, I mean, even Richard Dawkins, who is the atheist in his book, The God Delusion, when he gets to the origin of life, these are his words, and you can check it because the God Delusion is so popular, he's put it up for free on a digital copy. Well, digital is wonderful because you can do the Control F search. So if you look for the search for the word luck, you don't have to read the book even. Luck shows up at least 2 times, maybe more. But one of the big time it shows up for luck, it was a stroke of luck. What was a stroke of luck? The origin of life. Okay? So for Richard Dawkins, it was a stroke of luck. That's his statement in the text, the God Delusion, which I say you can get is free on the internet now. And because it's digital, you just have to do Control F, the search, whatever your search engine is within the text. Look for the word where he needs luck. He needs it a few times. But one is the origin of life. That's the big one, a gigantic question. How you turn rocks and water and a few simple molecules into something that becomes conscious, feels love, joy, excitement, has people like you and me talking, So he relates that to luck. So that's kind of a cop-out if you ask me. But anyway, so
Yeah, okay. Nice.
So I want to just go back and just make the deist aspect of flu was not true deism. And if we say those words are talk, how far did you come into God? He realizes that you can't get the DNA by chance. No one does. Not even Richard Dawkins, who in his book says it was a stroke of luck. It's so complex. I'm no biologist, so I don't know if those numbers are true, but I just, quoting. I mean, if Dawkins requires luck, then I'm willing to say it's pretty hard to get life. So it's not a pure deism. It's a deism that at least extends into the origin of life, which is billions of years downstream from the creation. So, okay.
So was it because he was old and he accepted the idea of theism? So what do you answer on that? Is he mentally stable at his old age? Do you remember?
I said before, I say he's not living now, but when we were together, age he showed, but he still walked fine and talked fine. But as far as mental agility, the arguments that he put up, as you can see in that video, were completely cognizant. It wasn't like it was a person blumbling along. He was completely cognizant of what he was saying. So that cop-out that people, not for you, but one of the cop-outs that people have tried to say that he really never gave up his atheism is that he was tricked. He wasn't tricked. He read 2 or 3 books, 2 by Voivod DC, which are excellent, Wonders of Creation, wonderful books, and 2 or 3 of mine. And that was his mistake.
Yes, all right.
In reading the information that's available.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go now for other questions. Why you decided to start studying nuclear physics in MIT, and what is your beginning into this studying relationship between science and religion? What do you say? Do you see some conflict between science and religion?
That's look, when I was studying at MIT, I wasn't really looking for whether there's a conflict or not a conflict. I was just doing science. It really wasn't on my mind about whether there's a conflict with religion or not. I doubt if maybe I attended religious services only on what we call the high holidays, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. So I wasn't looking for any confluence or confluence or conflict. It was just doing the science. It's later when I started thinking about the age of the universe. That's what got me into it, actually. That I figured that there must be some kind of a relationship going on that's not letting us understand the subtlety. And so most people look at the Bible, and they add up the calendar, and they get, if you look at the Hebrew Bible, you get to less than 6,000 years. Okay. And then, if you add on the kings and queens, etc., so you get way under the billions of years. But they fail to, a person that do that are persons who don't know the biblical calendar, because the biblical calendar has two parts to it. This Genesis chapter 1 is the famous creation chapter. God creates the heavens and the earth. It goes for 31 sentences, the end of which you have Adam. And the passage of time for that first chapter is many people know the phrase, and there was evening and there was morning. Day one, there are more things happening. Evening, morning, a second day, evening. That's the phraseology at the end of each day. Then comes Adam, and then his wife Eve. It's not really Eve in the Bible, but I just use the word Eve. And the calendar changes from this evening and morning, evening, from Adam and Eve forward. It's a totally different description of time. The description of time from Adam forward is Adam and Eve live 130 years, and they have a kid, the third child, named Seth. They have two kids, Cain and Abel. Cain murders Abel, and then Abel is dead. Cain is ostracized, and it says, and Adam and Eve live 130 years. They have a third kid named Seth. And then it says Seth lives 105 years as a kid named such. From Adam and Eve forward, the passage of time is totally earth-based. That if such and such years, etc. So there's a two calendar, and the first calendar is this strange evening, morning, day, evening. That calendar stands by itself, and that calendar does not see time as perceived from the earth. We learned that from ancient commentaries, Maimonides, Nachmanides, by the fact that the calendar says there's evening, morning, day one, or one day. Then it says second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, the sixth day. So why does it say day one? Why doesn't it say there is evening, morning, the first day? That's the entire key to the age of the universe, and also my calculations, the age of the universe. The calendar says there's day one, and then it says second day, third day, fourth day. So these ancient commentators, I'm talking commentators 1,000 or more years old, okay? Let's make that clear. Before anyone was worried about dinosaurs and cavemen, the commentary is the Bible says there's evening, morning, day one, and not evening, morning, a first day. Because I'm just quoting the commentators in English, I could say it in Hebrew, but you wouldn't understand it. And the Bible says day one because it could not write there was a first day on the first day because there is no other day. The only time that you can write first is when there's already a second. Right? During the First World War, only the pessimists called the First World War the First World War. During the First World War, it was the Great War. The pessimists were correct because they assumed there'd be a Second World War. But there's no Second War. Only when it became a Second World War did the First World War become the First World War and not the Great War, whatever. So you can't say first until there's a second. So the fact that the Torah says day one, this is not me speaking. It's the commentators then. I just put the numbers in, the astronomy numbers, and that made the calculations for the ages. The fact that the Torah says day one, in the Bible, there's evening, morning, one day, or day one, and it doesn't say a first day, but it does say evening, or second day, third day, fourth day. It goes, the comparative tells us that the Bible is seeing time from the beginning looking forward. If the Bible was seeing time for the 6 days of Genesis till you get to Adam, when the passage of time is described differently, But up to Adam, it's evening, morning, day one, evening, morning, second day, evening, morning, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a bad translation. I'm just letting it go at the usual translation that people have. So from the creation of the universe to Adam, not the first Homo sapiens sapien, the first Homo sapiens sapien with the human soul, because the Bible differentiates between Adam before he gets the soul and Adam after he gets the soul. So there were Homo sapiens sapiens, many before the Adam that we talk about in the Bible. And the Bible makes this clear in the sentence. If you don't look at the Hebrew carefully, you don't see it. But it's not bending the Bible. It's just there I can't say in black and white English. I say black and white Hebrew. So there's two calendars. The calendars up to for Adam from the creation to Adam sees time from the beginning looking forward. After that, we see 14 billion years from where we are in the universe looking backwards. That's the whole difference. And any astronomer will tell you the same thing. It's no trick by me. You measure the age of the universe, there is no one age. When we say the universe, I think, what is it now, 13.8 billion or 13.7 billion years old, something like that. There's another half of the sentence that nobody says, but everyone that is involved in the calculation knows. The universe is 13.7 or 13.8 or billion years old, as measured from the time, space, from coordinates of the Earth now. If you made the time measurement from the time, space coordinates of Jupiter, you'd get a different number, a tiny difference, but different. If you made it from another galaxy, you'd get a different number, it'd be very different. It's always the second half of the sentence, from the time, space coordinates of the Earth now. Well, the measurement of the Bible for the age, like those 6 days leading up to Adam, which form we realize the biblical calendar is two-part. 0 to Adam, and then Adam up till wherever you want to today or however you see it. That calendar for Adam is from the time-space coordinates near the beginning looking forward. That's why the Bible says there is evening, morning, day one, and not evening, morning, the first day. I want to make that clear. So there's two perspectives, and anyone who knows anything about measurement of time in the universe, even fundamental, like astronomy one, or maybe not, maybe astronomy 102, if not 101, okay, will tell you that's the whole difference. Perspective is the whole question. What's your perspective for making the measurement? So the Bible makes a measurement, gets like these 6 days leading up the first part from creation to the first Homo sapiens sapiens. We look back and it says, look, wow, it took about almost 14 billion years, not quite, to get the time after that. It's a few thousand years added on. It's insignificant to the billions. We look back and we say, yeah, it took almost 14 billion years. The Bible says, no, it took almost 6 days. Yeah, sure. It took those 14 billion years are true because they took place on Earth. Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. Much of the 14 billion took place on Earth, but some of the solar, etc. But how would it be if you took that measurement not from the Earth, but from the beginning looking forward? Oh, it's interesting. I just did the calculation, and it was pretty strange. It came out to be, without bending the Bible, using only astronomy numbers. So the universe has many ages, depends where you make the measurement from the Bible's point of view, from creation up to Adam, is in fact 6 24-hour days from that perspective. It's hard for people to believe, but that's why many of the ancient commentators say, realize that these days were 24 hours each. They're not as if, they are 24 hours each, as measured from that perspective. So it's, anyone wants it can find it. There's an essay that leads you by the hand. I'm going to say very slowly the name. It's easily available, I think, on, I haven't looked at it for a while, but on Google. The Age of the Universe. One Truth from Two Vastly Different Perspectives by Gerald Schroeder, Aish.com. The Age of the Universe. I think it's The Age of the Universe. 6 days and 14 billion years. One truth measured from two vastly different perspectives. And the word vastly is in from two vastly different perspectives. And I think that's probably close enough to be able to get it on Google. And there is an essay there. It's a few pages long, and it leads you literally by the nose or by your fingertips through the measurement, stage by stage, no tricks, completely transparent. Only numbers I use are astronomy numbers, except for the 6 days from the Bible. Anyway.
Okay, let me jump in. What do you think about old Earth creationism when we talk about Bible and similar? So that's idea that inorganic matter is old as radiometric dating suggests, but life or organic matter is young, less than 10,000 years. Is it possible to interpret scientific data in this way by calibrating C14 to fit a shorter chronology while treating radiometric dating for inorganic matter as it shows 4.5 billion years? So what's your opinion?
Carbon-14 only goes back several thousand years. It has a half-life, if I remember correctly, of about 5,000 years. So if you get back 20, 30,000 years, there's no more carbon-14 left. So little left. Put it down, half, never goes to zero, but there's so little left you can't make the measurement. Carbon-14 has been calibrated easily by tree ring data for several thousand years back. I don't recall the exact number. The way you do that is you can count tree rings, and a tree ring is carbon. It's wood, so you can measure.
Yeah, but we don't have a tree that is older than 5,000 years. So
that's right. That's the problem. Right. So it's calibrated back to several thousand years. That's what I'm saying. Carbon-14 isn't much use after maybe 10,000 years. There's so little left, but there are about 6 other radioactive clocks. Carbon-14 is only one of the radioactive clocks. There's many. There's potassium, argon, uranium, lead. I mean, there are many radioactive clocks. I have a stone, the person where I did some lectures in Africa that goes back. They told me there are billions of years, and it's dated by 2 radioactive decay chains. They both give the same number. So there are radioactive clocks that overlap. The carbon-14 is not a problem because we have the tree ring later that goes back a few thousand years. But that's, as you say, that's actually you can match tree rings so they go back a few thousand years actually, because you match tree rings of different sizes that overlap. Each season has a different thickness depending upon the nature of the climate. Okay, but so carbon-14 is good only for a few thousand years. It's nothing obvious. It's not good for anything is a million years, let alone a billion years. But there are at least 6 radioactive clocks.
Yeah, but they are inorganic they are for inorganic. Yeah,
of course. They're uranium, they're lead, they're the potassium, argon, which we have in our body. But you're asking me about organic matter. Organic matter. I'm not good enough on what other clocks can be used for organic matter because I only just thought about carbon-14, so I'm not much help there. But carbon is certainly good for I would say if it's 5,000, for 15.
Yeah, I agree.
15,000 years at least, 3 half-lives.
Yeah, sure. But we have some creationists that would say that life is young or recent because we have dinosaur soft tissue and living fossils and similar arguments that points to maybe young life but old Earth. Do you think it is a good theory or no?
I've never heard anything about dinosaur tissue. I doubt if we have any dinosaur tissue. Dinosaurs disappeared tens of millions of years ago.
About Mary Schweitzer, she said that we have a dinosaur blood cells or something similar.
I think it might be mammoth. The mammoths that were frozen in the north. I don't think we have done. I don't know. I'm not saying we don't. I am not aware of anyone who says that we have dinosaur tissue, that we have mammoth tissue for sure, because in Siberia there were mammoths that are almost, as I had read once, you could actually eat them. They were deep frozen at their death, many eons ago. I don't know the numbers, but as far as dinosaur tissue, I have never heard, and I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm only saying the following: I have never heard in all of my studies that there's dinosaur tissue. They disappear about 40 million years ago.
Mhm.
So
Okay, can you check this share screen? Because we can
I have
see.
shared screen. I see it, but
Yeah, this is Dr. Mary Schweitzer, and she discovers T-Rex proteins, blood cells, and similar. What do you think? Is it
apparently
interesting for you?
it's published somewhere, right or wrong?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't.
it's published in National Geographic or something. Yeah.
I doubt if it's National Geographic, but it might be. Let's see what it is.
Yeah, never mind about that. I just asking, is it
I don't know.
interesting theory?
I am not saying it's wrong or right. I'm saying I'm not familiar with it, but the likelihood of getting, I don't see where she got dinosaur tissue. I mean, maybe were the dinosaurs in only if they were in Siberia, and Siberia hasn't been frozen eternally. The Earth melted a few times. There was no ice on the Earth. It wasn't.
Mhm.
We're still in. The fact that we have ice on the North and South Pole means that we're still in part of an ice age. Although we say the ice age ended 10,000, didn't complete age because we have ice on the poles. There was a time when there was no ice on the Earth,
Mhm.
and I think that's measured in. And when, in fact, can we check on Google right now? What is the most recent time there was no ice on Earth? I'm going to look at. Can I believe Google? Are you going to check on Google, or should I check on Google?
Yes, yes. Just a moment, please.
When was the most recent time there was no ice on Earth?
Yes, last was 11,000 years and
So
700
let's
years
say
ago.
12,000 years ago.
Yeah,
That means the whole Earth was warm.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Never mind. Can you just give us
so
evidence
the
for?
so the dinosaurs would have rotted away. That was my point.
Yes, yes, I understand. Okay, thank you, Dr. Gerald. And can I ask you, what are the evidence that inorganic matter on Earth is ancient, that Earth is indeed about 4.5 billion years old? Can you provide an example that demonstrates the accuracy of radiometric dating?
Example of radioactive dating. Yeah, the fact that I wish I could put off that rock, that there are two totally different radioactive clocks, totally different chemistries involved, totally different physics. They both give the same age. Had I realized, although you warned me, I should have brought the rock so I could show you it. It was a gift. From people in Africa. It's a rock that's, I don't recall how many billion years old. It's one of the very older rocks, not the oldest, but it's in the billions, and it's dated by two radioactive decay chains. So what's crucial about being two chains, each chain has its own physics. Okay, so you get one. It's like having a clock that works by a battery and a clock that works by, I don't know, a spring or something. You know what I'm saying? In other words, the radio, when you have two clocks, the chemistry is different because they're different elements, and they both give the same age to within 10%, and they're both in I don't have the rock in front of me, it's in the other room, and I haven't looked at it, frankly, in about 3 or 4 years, maybe 10 years even. But in any event, it was a lovely gift, very kind gift. And the fact that there are two radioactive decay chains that give the same age in the billion. But this is rock, this is not organic. If you're talking about ages of rocks. Also, we have rocks that are brought back from the moon, that some of them have been dated. Meteors, 1 or 2 meteors, not many, have hit the Earth, and those have been dated also. So we have a solar system that's how old? I don't remember. It's more than the Earth. I am not sure the aim of the question, but I am sure that we have more than one radioactive clock that says the Earth is certainly billions of years old. Now, whether it's 4.7 or 3.9, or even two, it doesn't make much difference. It's a lot different from the simplistic reading of the Bible's calendar.
Right, great, I agree. And also, do you have some scientific evidence for Big Bang theory? Because maybe someone doubts that there is evidence for that, but can you give just examples of
Yeah, the
evidence for
ratio of
this?
one of the predictions of that there was what the Big Bang means that the universe is created. Let's use a different term. The Big Bang theory is that there was a beginning to our universe, and that it was hot, and it was energy, and that energy condensed into the matter that we see today via equals mc squared. From that, you can predict distributions of galaxies and distribution of elements. And the elements that are predicted that this would happen match the distribution of elements that we are measuring. I don't know if these notices popping up. Do these notices pop up on your borders? I'm getting notices popping up on my screen. Do you see them also? No, that's right there. No, good. Okay. No. Anyway, so I say that two things. First of all, we see the universe is expanding. Okay. And we look at the distribution of expansion rates in different depths or distances from the Earth, thanks to the work of Hubble and Henrietta Leavitt. If you really see Henrietta Leavitt and Hubble, she's the reason that we can do the work. And we find that it looks like the universe is once a lot smaller, and it's expanding out at a rate that's actually increasing. But the galaxies that are furthest from us are moving away the fastest. It doesn't mean that we're the center of the universe, but it does show that there's a distribution which implies an expansion from a point billions of years ago. A single point, there's an explosion. And those are the data that we read from astronomy. So those are the data that imply that there was a beginning to our universe. The fact that you can now with physics describe how that could possibly happen, provided you've got the physics before you've got the universe. And that's exactly what that video is, the Proof of God in 5 minutes, is about, which I urge your listeners to look at. And I think it's totally based on NASA data, National Space Authority, 100% NASA data, no Bible data in it, but it does come out to show that NASA seems to have discovered God. So all the physical data point to the fact that we.
Sorry, is this a picture of our early universe?
That's the famous background energy, microwave energy of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. So
doesn't mean
is it a picture of our early universe?
Yeah, well, it's the only picture you can have, because after that it's early. It's what it is actually it's the radiation that's left over from the Big Bang after the universe stopped being opaque, because the universe originally was opaque. That's why you can't really see back to the beginning.
But how is it possible to see our past? Can you explain that picture?
It's the distribution of energy in the universe that existed in general terms shortly. It's not shortly, but shortly after the creation. And the fact that if you can put it up again, the fact that there are hot spots and cold spots is exactly what quantum physics would describe. And the fact that there are hotter spots than colder spots means that some places have more and some places have less energy. And as that energy would condense, this might be after the condensation, but this particular picture, but anyway, as that energy condenses into matter, it means that there are some places that have more matter than other places. And places that have more matter than other places have more gravity than other places, and more gravity potential, and those places then start drawing surrounding matter to them, and you end up getting things like galaxies forming, which are the result of gravitational pull of the initial spread, of the initial non-uniform spread. So,
all right. Maybe some would say that our universe don't have beginning because maybe we have a Big Bang, then we have Big Crunch, and again Big Bang, and in
there
the
are no
infinite
data.
regression.
Okay, I can jump in to solve that problem right away. There are no data that ever showed it was the great hope to get by a creation, namely that the universe would expand and the gravity of this pulling on this would slow it and then would come down. The difficulty, first of all, is the universe is expanding and the rate of expansion is increasing. But even forgetting the fact that we don't have no idea how the rate of expansion be increasing unless there's a new form of energy coming, becoming available. Or gravity, as the separation becomes too weak, so there's another force that was always present. But the gravity of the galaxies was so close together that they overwhelmed this other lower force that we have no idea what it is. But now that the expansion is such that the galaxies are far enough apart, this lower force can start to act. But there were never scientific data that implied that our universe would collapse. It was always like on a borderline. Would it collapse or not? But it never said yes, collapse. But of course, yes, collapse was the great hope of persons who don't want to have been an initial beginning. There are no data that support a collapsing universe. All the data support one creation that doesn't mean that no one should be confused to think that therefore the sun and the earth and the system will last forever. No, there'll be a heat death eventually. There won't be, the sun will use up all of its energy, maybe it'll explode, maybe it won't explode. It's not, it totally, probably will expand. And the solar system will be destroyed, but that's a few billion years from now. If we humans can keep ourselves together till it happens, that'll be very good. By that time we'll figure out something else to do. But it's not right around the corner. But eventually the sun will run out of energy. That's just what's going to happen.
Great, and this is really mind-blowing. And I have one question about this. Why God? Why not something else? Maybe cause is just some kind of quantum field or non-dimensional 0 point or something. Why God?
Well, it looks like there's a force acting in the world. That's the difficulty. How does the genetic code get? I mean, there are many things that are very complicated. The design of the universe, with these very light electrons and these very heavy protons and neutrons. It didn't have to be that way. So it looks like there is a deliberate attempt to make a universe in which there can be complex life. Does that prove it? No. But the fact that we have consciousness from rocks and water. I mean, let's realize it starts off with rocks and water. And then you have people talking, loving, feeling, excitement, wondering, that's rocks and water doing that. I mean, it wasn't, that's what we're made of, rocks and water. So that became molecules and became organic, etc. But the origin is non-organic matter became alive. Could that happen? I think it did happen. How did it happen? Well, you have to tune in from probably a few thousand years from now because no one has a clue at the moment how it happened. Okay, it's total speculation. So.
Yes, great answer. And can you give us examples, and we will head to the end of this interview, example of fine-tuning of universe, maybe some nuclear forces or something that points to design or something?
Well, I just always like to use the one of the electron and the proton, I think we talked about before, because you can't have complexity without a light electron that has the same charge as the heavy proton. So the protons and the binding make up the mass, but the electrons allow molecules. So that's, by me, that's fine tuning. There's many others, and I'm not the person to come to, There's even a book, I think, 7 Numbers or something like that, where it talks about 7 specific numbers. There are experts that know these things. So, that study these individual forces and how finally they're balanced. So we see how balanced life is. We have a certain temperature in the body. And if you get off by 1 and 2 degrees, like us, if you're off the difference by 1%, you feel sick. So
Yes, amazing. And last question, can you say, is God personal to you? Do you see God in your life? Do you have some experiences with God maybe or something?
yeah,
You
just
see,
comes together because I wrote some books that became, thank God, famous. Okay. I don't know, I don't say I deserve it. It's all my wife's benefit. But if I look at the system, if I look at the dominoes that led me to writing a book, I really wonder what's going on. I had no thought of writing a book, none, zero. Yeah, for you listeners don't know, the first was Genesis and the Big Bang. It became, I'm not bragging, but it became a classic. I don't, it must be all my wife's benefit because it's not a merit, because I don't have the merit for this stuff. And from that book to everything else spread, came one right after the other. So how do I write? I had no thought of writing a book. We're living in Israel. We go on a sabbatical, every 7 years. The idea of, academia has sabbaticals. Are you familiar with that? Well, every 7 years, a sabbatical comes right out of the Bible, and
yeah.
academia has embraced that. And we go on a sabbatical leave, and my wife, Barbara, so for sure, she's a writer. She meets another writer, wonderful human being. This other writer and she go, and they meet that's totally, we meet there. They meet there. In America, they never knew each other before. It was just a chance meeting. They become friends. They go to a conference. They meet an agent who agents represent writers for books. They meet an agent, fun. Then we come back to Israel. A year goes by, the phone rings. This agent calls, remember me? Yeah, remember, why don't you come for a meal? She comes for a meal. I give a little bit of a dart. I give a word, describe Torah, and she leaves. And as she's leaving, you say, Jerry, what you said that about the Bible tonight at the meal, that's a book. Why don't you write it? As an agent. Okay, so I decide that's a good idea. I write it. And eventually she sells the book to Bantam Doubleday, which is the largest publisher in the world at the time. Possibly crazy set of coincidences. We go on sabbatical. My wife meets a person who likes her. They're both, turns out by chance, they're both writers. They go to a writers' conference. They meet an agent. A year goes by. The agent phones us. Barbara says, why don't you come have a meal? She comes to a meal on Friday night. Friday night, I give a little discussion of what we're reading in the Bible, which just happens to be the book of Genesis. Could have been any other part of the Bible altogether. And this agent who sat for the meal heard the little word, a 10-minute statement about the Bible reading of the book of Genesis chapter 1, says to me, that's really could be a good book. Why don't you write it? I had no thought about writing a book, but this is a person who sells books to publishers, convinces publishers to, and if she says it, maybe she's right. So I worked for a few years on it. She takes it, tries place after place, says no, no, no. Finally, the largest publisher in the world, Bantam Doubleday at the time, says yes. Okay, and they publish it, and that's the beginning. And if she had not come, if that agent, who sadly Helen Reese, who died of cancer about 10 years ago, if she hadn't come to dinner on a Friday night evening, that just happened to be, we're reading Genesis chapter 1. We read a different chapter every week. We read different chapters. So we just happened to be reading Genesis chapter 1 when we invite her after a year has gone by since we saw her in America. I had never met her. Barbara met her. And she just happens to call on this time. And I happen to give this line. Then she says, as she's leaving, what you said tonight's a book. Write it. And, if she says it, maybe it's true. So I write it, and she takes it and tries to, with great effort, tries to sell it. Place. She never told me, but company after company said no, 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 no. And finally, the largest publisher in the world said yes. Bingo, that's the beginning. So I can see from the clock behind your left shoulder that it's time to go. Yeah. So
Okay. Dear Dr. Gerald, it was absolute pleasure and wonderful experience. So thank you for your time. I call our audience to follow our channel, subscribe and comment, and I hope that we will see more, maybe once more again. So thank you.
I urge your people to watch it's 5 minutes and 28 seconds. Proof of God in 5 minutes. Okay, Gerald Schroeder, and I really urge it. It's very interesting, and I take no credit for the graphics, which are great. I did not do the graphics. Ciao.
Okay, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.